And for those of us who are craving the experience, who want to learn from the inside out, just reading Ashrei as a word on a page, or on a scroll for that matter, was not enough. It's a very special Torah from Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, Credo of a Modern Kabbalist, exploring the Jewish spirituality, the application of Jewish wisdom and Jewish mysticism to modern times, postmodern times, to the now, to exactly where we are in these times. This is the Judaism of the iPad, of the information age, of the electronic speed level of life. And what are the questions that we ask? What are the needs of our soul? How do we find our spiritual growth wavelength in life as we know it now, not in life as it is written in the books that make up the body of knowledge called Kabbalah, but rather what is the Kabbalah for the future moving forward? Let's feed our souls. Let's jump right in. Here we go. So the subchapter here is reliving anxiety, the need to seek. Do you need to seek? Do I need to seek? Is seeking, spiritually seeking, where does that come from? Let's find out. Let's look more closely at how this process functions in our time. It often begins when a Jewish person says, if my reality map is any more near correct, then the stuff they have been teaching me is not something God would have handed down at Mount Sinai. That's the discrepancy between our mythic, deeply sacred story, the Torah, and life. It is of such poor quality, at so low a level, that I can't believe it myself, nor do I believe that my teachers even believed it. The next step is that this person appears to drop Judaism, since it is a spiritual hunger which is driving the person. She or he goes out and starts looking around. The person is really feeling that there must be meaning, there must be something more. And you and I have done just that. Where have you looked around? Away from Torah, away from the Hebrew school knowledge that you received, or away from the yeshiva knowledge that you received. I've looked into Eastern tradition, Tantric yoga, Est at the time, human potential development, Western and Eastern, Sufism, where else? Mindfulness meditation, Buddhism. We have looked around, and there was a lot to find when we looked around. In fact, my spiritually defining moment was in meditation that I learned from a guru in India. Let us continue. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, happy are those who dwell in your house. And that's the name of the next sub-chapter, the beginning of the famous Ashrei prayer. What is it that seekers seek? What kind of meaning do they want to find? The seekers whom I have met are all very different kinds of people. But what they are seeking, the meaning that they want to find, is simply what I would call ashrei. Anxiety is the state of a person who is not in ashrei. And ashrei is the absence of anxiety. Eventually, a person who has been experiencing frequent or pervasive anxiety is likely to reach a crisis which may express itself in this: I'm not happy. I'm convinced that I'm not in the state in which nature wants me to be in. I've experienced times when I felt a healthy and grounded euphoria. I know that at such moments I did not feel crazy. Everything I touched was meaningful. I know that these moments point to a way of being which is better than the state of anxiety. I would like to know how to move from the state of anxiety to the state of meaningful and healthy being. At one time, being healthy, quote unquote, and holy, quote unquote, were essentially the same thing. Healthy and holy, an equivalence. In Hebrew, the word for health, briut, comes from the same root as the second word of the Torah, bara. He created. And when we pray for a refuah shlema, a perfect healing, the word for perfection, which also means completion or wholeness, comes from the same root as shalom. Therefore, peace, wholeness, holy, and healthy all describe different aspects of the same essential quality. This quality of the absence of anxiety as an outcome of a spiritual path was known to the psalmist. The book of Psalms begins with the words Ashrei Ha'ish Asher lo halach be'atzat reshaim. Happy is the person who has not followed the counsel of the wicked. In Latin, the opening words are Beatus vir. The Christian Midrash Jesus, Sermon on the Mount, contains the Beatitudes, each of which in English begins with the expression blessed are, which in Hebrew would be Ashrei. The verse then goes on to use the verb halach, walked. So by going the right way, a person experiences Ashrei. Walking the right way is Ashrei. In the following verse, also from Psalms, Psalm 84, verse 5, and which is recited 3 times each day, Ashrei is rendered in the Aramaic translation as tuveichon, from the word tov. Oh, how good it is, and which, or how good it is. Again, from the word tov. Further, in this verse, the focus shifts from going to dwelling, Ashrei yoshvei veitecha. Happy are those who dwell in your house. From Ashrei halach, Ashrei the one who walks, to Ashrei the one who dwells. Ashrei is the sense of health and holiness which comes from standing in the presence of God without shame or guilt. Let me repeat that again. Certainly very meaningful for me. Ashrei is a sense of health and holiness which comes from standing in the presence of God without shame or guilt. Ashrei sees itself rightfully and meaningfully as a euphoric state of being, both in right action and in simple sitting. Ashrei halach and Ashrei yashrei. It is a mitzvah, just as the euphoria of being in Shabbat is justifiable, because it is a mitzvah. And it is permitted, even obligatory, to celebrate this good feeling. So just like Shabbat is a mitzvah, here Reb Zalman is talking to those of us, and I'm guilty as charged, who are workaholics. And we live in a culture that is a workaholic culture. Let's admit it. You and I work way too much, way more than is our nature. How many times have I asked the parents of a kid who's come for bar mitzvah, what are the values that you want to impart? And what do parents answer? What do you think they answer? What is the highest value of the land that most parents want to impart to the kids? Work hard. So Reb Zalman here is talking to us, to a culture of workaholics. And he's saying that Ashrei, that blissful state, that birthright of ultimate pleasure and wholeness and rightness, is justified. It's a mitzvah in the sense that it's a birthright, just like Shabbat, just taking a day off, a day for recreation and rejuvenation and filling up our batteries is a mitzvah. So is Ashrei, so is bliss. You and I are obligated. It's an obligation to ourselves to fill up with this godly gift of pleasure and wholeness, Ashrei. After running frenetically all week, a Jew puts down his or her burdens every Friday afternoon and says, Baruch Hashem, thank God, at last. Now I am free just to sit and enjoy. I don't need to run. I don't need to make, do, fix, or change for today. I can just be. Because it is a mitzvah just to rest and to experience being, capital B, in the presence of God, the traditional Jew celebrates that euphoric feeling on Shabbat, the Onek Shabbat, joy of the Sabbath. And the Jew pauses from running through the week to daven Shacharit, pray the morning service with the rising sun or Mariv, the evening service, against the background on which the evening is becoming even undistorted and relaxed, finds that she and he has created a little piece of Shabbat in that midweek space. So how do you find your moments of wholeness, of completeness, of bliss, within a day, within a week, on Shabbat? This is intuitive stuff. We know it. We know when we sit back and take a breath. Unfortunately, though, and I'm as guilty, as charged as anyone else, we fill our potential bliss moments with more distraction, with more work, or at least with external input. How many times have you sat down to relax by watching screen? Just more work, just more input. How many times could you have sat down and allowed something to rise from within just by closing eyes, just by connecting with a loved one, just by looking out at the stars, just by listening to birds? So this is the art and science of Ashrei, is finding those genuine moments. where the gift of wholeness, of completeness, of coming back to center, coming back to who we are, you are, I am, is available and gifted to us. You're not glossing over it. Let me continue with the next subchapter. Ashrei as a normal state of being. There are some people who claim to experience the euphoria of Ashrei as a normal state of being. In the Hare Krishna movement, they say that once you have really gotten to that place, which I called Ashrei, it is possible to stay there forever. Guru Maharaji says, quote, "This is the nectar that comes down from the high place and that gives you bliss." In the East, people call this state of Ashrei Satchitananda, consciousness, being, or bliss. In it, a person feels expanded, conscious, healthy, and justified before God. Justified before God. Remember the word justified? It's an interesting word. When we justify on the when we're word processing, we're justifying to the left or justifying to the right. That means to align, to have everything align right with justified to the right, justified to the left, justified to the center, justified to God. Justified to the fullness of who you and I are as a human being. Isn't that beautiful? So for today, we're going to cover one more subchapter, and the next one is sitting to search. How can we achieve that place in which Ashrei becomes our normal state of being? When we begin to find those who say they're producing Ashrei people, the first thing they tell us is, now sit quietly. In this Meshugana, or harried age, where we and everything around us is constantly moving, it is truly remarkable to create a mitzvah, a spiritual discipline which says, sit quietly, watch your breath, observe yourself. Just put your mind at rest. Put all your anxieties away. Just repeat calmly, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. Just practicing this first step brings positive effects and immediate benefits. People who learn to sit quietly become so immersed in the here and now that time has no duration for them. Time is no longer punctuated by minutes and seconds. Further, Zen teachers say that even if you learn only a little, you can begin to see how all opposites make sense and fit together. These are levels of consciousness which are clearly desirable for seekers and encourage them to continue in these practices which they discover after leaving Judaism. So we have gone out to seek, we have gone out to search. When we could not find Ashrei in Torah, we read the word Ashrei, but that has not yet unlocked the experience of Ashrei. And for those of us who are craving the experience, who want to learn from the inside out, just reading Ashrei as a word on a page, or on a scroll for that matter, was not enough. And thus we reached out to the world wisdoms, to places where the seeking, where the experience is fresh and alive and impactful. And now what are we doing with that? That's going to be for the next lesson, for the next chapter. Thank you for joining me here today for this lesson. I'm Rabbi Ruben Modik with Hebrew Learning Circles and Makom Halev Community here in Nyack, New York. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like. Write comments below. I would love to continue this conversation with you in the comments section. For now, today is Friday, and I'd like to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Are we going to find Ashrei this Shabbat? Let's do that. Shalom for now.